Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam Rourke, and I serve as the Assistant Commissioner for Career and Technical Education here at the Commission. Looks like we still have some folks joining us for this session, but we'll go ahead and get started. As many of you may know, the CTE team joined the Commission about a year and a half ago, so I help lead our about a 10-person team here at the Commission focused on career and technical education efforts, both at the secondary and post-secondary level. And obviously, we do that work in partnership with many of our state agency partners, and then other stakeholders, and obviously our local partners as well. Today, we are going to be talking specifically about the idea of completing credentials within the CTE space, with a particular focus on post-secondary credentials, but also industry recognized certification and other credentials of value that students can earn within career and technical education. Before we kind of get into hopefully kind of the practical aspect of what does it really look like for a student to earn a credential within CTE, going to do a little bit about, what is CTE, what is our vision, what are the available programming options within CTE, what goes into a good CTE program, and then we'll kind of get into some of those specifics about the credential opportunities that exist within the CTE space. The chat is open and available, and you're welcome to use that throughout the session, and I've certainly plan to have some time at the end for questions, but as it makes sense, I may stop for questions that pop up as I go through the presentation. So feel free to chime in with any questions you might have throughout the presentation. All right, you'll see this slide, I'm sure, in a lot of the different presentations today, but this is the HOPE agenda, the guiding goals for the Commission. And as we think about this aspect we're going to be discussing today, this is really in support of that fourth HOPE goal around the rate of Hoosiers successfully completing their chosen areas of study. All right, so what is CTE, right? We, I think, often find that individuals have a general idea of CTE, but maybe not a full understanding of the scope of different opportunities available through CTE. Maybe think about it mostly from kind of as the trades programs, the vocational education language that would have been common for up until pretty recently. So we do like to kind of level set here and say, what it is encompassed within CTE. So when we're talking about CTE, we're talking about programs of study that are offered mainly in the secondary space, either at a school or at some sort of career center type venue, or in the post-secondary side of things, mostly through a community or technical college. So here in Indiana, that's primarily going to be through Ivy Tech or Vincennes University. Within a CTE program, there's going to be kind of the academic, employability, technical skills that a student is learning. You're generally looking at programs that they require some sort of education and training beyond high school, but they may not require a four-year degree. Although we are continuing to, through some of our programming, have more and more partnership with four-year institutions in certain areas of study. And as we move through a couple of these next slides, I think you'll see, as we think about the full scope of CTE, there are a lot of programs that do lend themselves to alignment with four-year institutions. One of the things we've really focused on in the secondary space is this third point here of making CTE certainly still about exploration, students exploring their interests, finding something they're passionate about. But to the extent that a student, has really identified something that they see as a potential career path for them, making CTE also about preparation, so that they're not just exploring within the secondary space, but they are beginning to acquire skills. They're beginning to work towards a credential that is going to have value for them as they pursue that career path. And the last point here is really just this idea that, especially, when we think about the secondary space, the vast majority of students are going to take at least one CTE class within their high school experience. So the majority, the overwhelming majority of students that we have in a high school cohort are going to participate in CTE within some way. They're not all going to go through a full pathway, but they're going to at least take an introductory course or one course within a pathway or something of that nature. All right, as we, as part of our transition to the commission, we really worked on refining our vision statement. This is in our state plan as well, to articulate what are we really trying to accomplish within CTE and how does that align to the HOPE agenda and things of that nature. So here you'll just see our focus areas really, and that is having more students participate in work-based learning, having more students earn dual credit, and obtain the credentials that we're going to be talking about today. And a central element of making those things happen is better career coaching and navigation that starts earlier in a student's secondary journey, so that they're able to identify an area of interest and really start working towards some of those outcomes that I articulated. And through earning those outcomes, we really hope that CTE has a measurable impact on the last two bullet points there, which those are also in the HOPE agenda as well, right? So that we're supporting both individuals in their economic and social mobility, but also our employers around the state, and ensuring that they have a well-qualified talent pipeline in various important industry sectors that are important to our state's economy. All right, so this is kind of just hitting at this idea of what all is available within CTE, right? So on the right is our current CTE career clusters. Some of these recently got mildly renamed due to some updates that were made at the national level regarding career clusters. Career clusters are really just a way to organize available programs of study, available pathways that states have within CTE. So the visual on the left is from that national career cluster framework that was recently released by an organization called Advanced CTE. And you can kind of see they organize the different career clusters within broader categories as well, whether it's careers that are mostly focused on caring for communities or building and moving, or those aspects. On the right is our available career clusters. So again, like I said, you're going to see things here that are more trades and things that generally first come to mind for individuals when they're thinking about CTE. But you're also going to be seeing other aspects, whether it's if someone's interested in education or digital technology or business or a variety of other career areas. I generally say if someone is doing some sort of career-focused training, especially like in the high school space, they're in a CTE program, right? And so this is the scope of different opportunities that are available within CTE. All right, so that's what we have available. And then we're going to think a little bit about what goes into a good program of study, right? What makes a good post-secondary education and training program. And on the left are the priorities from the Strata Education Foundation. Some of you may be familiar with them, and certainly here at the Commission, we think a lot of that they do a lot of great work as kind of a thought leader in this space. So on the left, yeah, those are the elements that they have put in their priorities of this is what makes a good post-secondary education and training program. And those are really central to what we're trying to have be the reality of what happens within a CTE program, right? So whether it's good work-based learning opportunities that occur as part of the student's experience, that employer alignment piece, right? That our programming is really truly aligned to the needs and demands of industry and is keeping up with changes in those various industry sectors that we would have just looked at on the previous slide. Good career coaching and navigation, affordability, clear outcomes of what we're trying to look for, right? And those are a lot of the things we talked about within the vision statement. So, and it, kind of on the right here, you see we have the course sequence. It's aligned to a post-secondary program at Ivy Tech or Vincent's, but what are those other supporting elements that are going into making a high quality program of study? All right, and then here, this is just a way for us to think about the fact that a student, might be entering a career pathway from the secondary side or from the adult side. But the idea is that the opportunities stack, the stackability aspect is present no matter when a student enters a pathway, and there's entry and exit points throughout their journey, right? So a student may accumulate some education, some training, then they may exit to employment. And then our goal, and through a lot of our programming efforts by aligning to post-secondary entities and other aspects, is ensuring that the post-secondary any of the education and training they've previously accomplished is able to be they're able to stack that in the future as they continue to progress down their career pathway. All right, so that was kind of the broader framing that we wanted to think through today. And then the next section here is we're going to think about more, okay, where are we at in terms of the credentials that students earn within career technical education right now? What are credentials, right? What are we talking about when we're thinking about different credentials opportunities? And then what are the realistic ways that we can hope to increase those numbers, right? So what are the elements that need to be true for more credential attainment within the CTE space? So here we're going to start with just kind of our baseline. And with a lot of our CTE data, we are reporting it in terms of our CTE concentrators. And again, here we're focusing on the secondary space here. So for a student to be a CTE concentrator in Indiana, they'll have taken 3 courses within their particular program of study, a principles course, and then 2 concentrator courses that kind of get more in depth into that content. There is also a capstone course, which is going to be one of the things we talk about here, but they don't have to take the capstone course to be a concentrator. So when we think about our concentrators, and generally speaking, the last few years, about 1/3 of a cohort in Indiana achieves CTE concentrator status. And so of that, 30,000 or so, 35% of those students earn 9 or more college credits. So they're earning 9 or more college credits within their pathway. And when we look at that nationally, that is we are a national leader in dual credit within CTE. States are allowed to have little different metrics of what they count. So some states might not use the 9 dual credits. They may count a student if they earn 6 dual credits or something of that nature. So it's a little hard to compare state by state, but we've set a high metric and our percentage is significantly higher than most other states. But while 35% of those students are earning 9 or more dual credits, we only see about 20% of those students earning a credential. So it's definitely significantly lower in terms of students earning a credential. And most of those credentials right now tend to be they're industry recognized certifications, not the post-secondary certificate. So a technical certificate or like in Ivy Tech's case, a 15 credit CT is generally the abbreviation used. so those post-secondary certificates are generally a pretty small portion. And that's what you would see here on the graph on the right. So on the far right is in blue, those are of the credentials, all the things in blue are the industry recognized certifications. And then in orange is the post-secondary credentials. So you can tell that most of the credentials that are being earned are the industry recognized certifications. And our hope is that over time, we are continuing to grow the amount of students that are earning those post-secondary credentials. Many of you will be very familiar with the Indiana College Core, right, which allows students, which is a technical certificate and is a 30 credit block of courses. Our hope is that more and more students are earning basically the equivalent of the Indiana College Core within their CTE pathway. So the technical certificate within whatever area they've chosen. And a step towards that is those like 15 credit certificates that are available in a lot of different areas. And if you think about it, with a lot of students earning 9 or more dual credits, they're pretty close to those 15 credit certificates. So that's where we would really like to see some progress. First is turning more of those students who are already earning 9 or more dual credits into earning a credential, that first post-secondary certificate within their area of study. All right, so I kind of talked about this as I was going through that slide, but when we're thinking about a credential, what exactly does that mean, right? We're hearing that term a lot, a credential of value, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit more here throughout the next few slides. But when we're thinking about a credential, we're either thinking about industry recognized certifications or post-secondary credentials. So the certifications, that might be something like CompTIA, AWS within the welding space, a CNA license within the healthcare space. And Indiana has a grad pathways list that is used for, for grad pathways purposes, but it's also what we use in terms of anything that we're counting has to be on that list. So we're either talking about industry recognized certifications or we're talking about post-secondary credentials. And that's where, the ultimate goal in a lot of these areas is those technical certificates, which are basically the equivalent of the Indiana College Core within a particular CTE area focus. But there's also the more the 15 credit or so hour certificates that are available within a lot of programs. And then, in certain ideal cases, students may be able to progress all the way through an associate's degree within their chosen area. I think I kind of covered on the left there. I mean, obviously credentials play a key role, not just within CTE, right, but within adult education, other WIOA programs, and then are obviously a central element of the discussions around high school redesign right now. Okay, so on the next couple of slides, we're going to think about, so that's what a credential is. What gives it value, right? What are the elements that give a credential value? This here is just kind of a general idea of a way to think about different credentials. Many of you may know that the state is working on a broader credential value list that will likely be released sometime early in 2025. And the idea behind that list is going to be some sort of tiering of this nature. So these terms are not, may not exactly appear on that list when it is finalized, but this is kind of a general idea of what many, state agencies and other partners have been working on in that list, is trying to more clearly delineate differences in value of credentials, right? So you have more foundational certifications, and then you might have, more advanced certifications that, credentials, certifications being an element, but that provide maybe more value to students than some of those foundational ones. So look for more information on that kind of in the first quarter of 2025. But as we're thinking about this general idea of the differences in value of different credentials, these are some of the elements that generally go into thinking about that, right? Of how are we going to decide where a particular certification or certificate or other credential may land within a tiered list of that nature. So and these elements are very similar to what's currently used within our grad pathways list, but are also kind of some of the organizing principles that have been going into some of the thought regarding the credentials of value list as well. So, I think these are fairly understandable here, but these are some of the elements that are key to thinking about a credentials value. I'm going to stop and just check the chat here. I know I saw a couple things come in. I will say that I believe the slides are already posted, and then we'll send them out afterwards as well. So there are a variety of links within the presentation. For example, on this slide, the grad pathways list is linked here. So I think I see someone is asking where that could be found. And then maybe that can be dropped in the chat as well if someone has access to that. But and then a good question regarding the promoted and approved list. So the state utilizes through the Department of Workforce Development a promoted industry certifications list that is used for a wide variety of purposes. So you can kind of see that to the point I had made here on this slide of utilizing for adult education or WIA programs, or that list is utilized across a wide variety of purposes. And then the grad pathways list is a subset of that list that is really has a high school student in mind and is utilized for the purposes of there's a current graduation requirement that earning an industry certification, and that list is what tells the field whether or not a certification counts for that metric. And again, that is what we also use within CTE to determine if a certification counts. So there's some more, there's some basic type, more foundational certifications that might be on the promoted list, such as OSHA 10, which many may be familiar with, but it's not on the grad pathways list. So great certification for students to earn is on the promoted list, but does not count for graduation purposes. All right, I see a few more things in the chat, but I think I will move on currently and maybe come back to some questions here momentarily. But again, I think we kind of had left off here with these elements that are important to determine the value of a particular credential. Particularly, a lot of times we're utilizing these to assess a lot of things within the industry certification space. Okay, so now we're going to try to get a little bit more specific in terms of what does it take for a student to earn a credential within CTE. So maximizing their chances of doing so often comes down to the three things that I have here. So one, it's about being able to offer a pathway for dual credit in general, right? Whether a lot of, in the secondary space, students, the vast majority of our programming is available for dual credit, but the school may not necessarily be able to offer it, right? There's different things that go into being able to offer a program for dual credit. Generally, the biggest barrier is having an instructor that is licensed to do so for dual credit. The second element that we'll talk about is capstone courses. So I had mentioned earlier that there's the first three courses within a secondary CTE program that gets a student to concentrator status. There's a fourth course that they don't need for the graduation requirement, but is often where they would be able to finish off a credential, right? So maybe they've earned 9 or so dual credits up through concentrator status, but they would need to take the capstone course to get those remaining credits they would need towards that initial certificate. And then just the idea of embedding certifications within a program. Most of that work is kind of laid out already within our programs of study, and it's pretty clear which certifications a student can earn as part of the program, but there's certain things that go into that, right? A school has to, might have to pay something to get the certification, things of that nature, and we will talk about some of the funding supports later in the presentation. But here, this is just kind of taking a look at welding, which is obviously one of our available programs of study. You can see the idea here is kind of starting on the left. That's the initial progress someone would make, and then they're going to progress further and further through the program of study to earn higher level credentials, right? So as part of, on the left, getting to concentrator status, they may be able to earn a couple industry certifications. And then you can see, hey, maybe they would be able to have an employment outcome, something of the nature of in the yellow box. The next step would be getting to that first certificate. So the CTE in structural welding here from Ivy Tech, or the CG in welding technology from Vincennes. And to do that, they would likely need to take the capstone course. And then, obviously there are further opportunities available as they persist down their education journey that would occur after high school in most cases, right? As they work towards an associate's or bachelor's degree. This, one of our, we're hoping to make more and more of these type of visual elements for our different programs. We've received a good amount of positive feedback on these kind of things that I think do help show the connection between credentials and those employment outcomes that might be available to students as they persist through their education journey. All right, so first, we're going to talk about capstones. And as I mentioned, this is the fourth course in the secondary sequence. The first three courses are available for 2 credits for students. And the capstone course can be offered anywhere from 2 to 6 credits. This graphic just kind of shows you a little bit of the structure of a capstone course. It's normally basically a mixture. There's room for work-based learning within the capstone course, and that's kind of the part 3 element. But the student is also doing additional content, additional standards beyond the concentrator sequence. And you'll see here that doing part 1, the first 2 credits of the capstone course, is often what's required to complete that first certificate. So we've transitioned to these new secondary programs of study a few years back, and for many districts, this current school year was the first year that they were offering more capstone courses. They kind of been transitioning over to the new pathways and having more students get to concentrator status within the new programs of study, and so they're looking at a lot of these capstone opportunities. So we've been trying to work with districts across the state to keep increasing the amount of the capstone offerings, knowing that it's a really central element to students being able to complete their credentials. And then in a lot of cases, the part 2 aspect would be additional content that might go beyond that first credential. So that first 15 credit credential, maybe this would be more content that would support a student getting closer to their technical certificate or certificate of graduation within their program of study. Within the CTE space, we're really often focused on just the technical courses. That's what we build into the program, right? And then a student, in a lot of cases, might have to earn a more general education course to complete one of these credentials. So a lot of the technical certificates might require an English course or a business course or communications course or something that is not directly related to that program of study, but is required for the credential. And there's a lot of ways they could earn that course. They could do it in the summer through like the Crossing the Finish Line program, or just through their school's regular offerings that they're offering to all students. I think one important thing about that is this idea that I think that helps show that a CTE student is still a student that is working towards a post-secondary credential, just like maybe a student doing the ICC, and that the CTE student might need to take a course that the ICC student is taking in order to complete their credential. All right, so within those capstone courses, there can be there might be different ways that a school is offering them. They may be offering them within their school setting, but they also could do it through dual enrollment. That's a growing area and something that particularly can be utilized within capstone courses a lot, or some of these other non-traditional delivery options may be appropriate to help a student work towards a credential. Obviously, you're continuing to hear more discussion of youth apprenticeships or some of the employer-led programming, especially through the Career Scholarship Account program. But I think one thing that we often are stressing more and more to our districts is that a CTE program does not necessarily have to happen at the school or the career center as they would have, traditionally thought of it. There are a lot of different ways to offer the content of a program. We care about, are the standards being covered in a quality way, right? But however that's occurring, there's a lot of different options. So you can do it through a post-secondary institution, it can be through some sort of partnership with an employer or a training provider, in addition to some of the more traditional options that normally first come to mind. I see that I am a little behind here, so I'm trying to roll through a couple of these slides a little bit quicker to ensure that we have some time for questions towards the end. All right, so that was kind of thinking about capstones and some of the ways that you might be able to offer the capstone or just CTE programming in general. Another element that is really important towards being able to offer students the opportunity to earn a credential is the dual credit piece. And one of the things we've done some work with here, and there's a link here to just some basic guidance, is for a school to offer a course for dual credit, it's they need to be able to meet the same requirements of a post-secondary institution. So the facilities, the materials, and the instructor licensing, et cetera. So that's something that we hear from time to time on both, from the post-secondary and secondary side as they are working through those agreements. But so we've worked to just kind of put out some general guidance on that aspect, but that's an important element. And so that would go back to kind of the previous slide of if the school maybe is not able to offer something for dual credit for whatever for whatever reason, they may consider offering it for dual enrollment instead. And we kind of discussed that on the last slide. I mentioned earlier that credentialing is often the biggest barrier, and here I've just kind of included some of the basic requirements that Ivy Tech and Vincennes, which are primary partners within the CTE space, have, and then also some recent guidance from the Higher Learning Commission. One important thing to always keep in mind is that credentialing requirements are a little different in the CTE space, so we always encourage school partners to to ask, right, and to look into it, to not assume that an instructor may not be able to teach a course for dual credit, because the requirements are different within CTE than they are within a lot of core subject areas. So sometimes individuals are kind of transferring their knowledge of what's required within the core areas to CTE and thinking, oh, that instructor will not be able to be credentialed for dual credit, but that's not always the case. So it can't hurt to at least kind of explore it, ask, see what might need to be done in order for that instructor to be certified for offering dual credit. Let's see here. Yeah, I see Miranda's question here. And yeah, there's a lot of different ways that might look. You know, I think one of the things we're always stressing to a school is that, you know, the school is still responsible for ensuring that, you know, the standards of the program are being met, and they're still responsible for giving a grade, giving an assessment for the student's experience at the end of it. As far as the instructor, I mean, that just depends on the situation, and if the employer is, you know, I can think of examples where maybe an employer is bringing in someone from IB Tech to do some training or some other model. So it really just depends on the particular situation. I would say there's not a ton of examples currently where there's a lot of examples where the employer is, you know, the student's doing some sort of substantive work-based learning experience, and they're doing some training there. But there's not a ton of examples currently where the employer is doing, like, you know, the full course. We have some, and I think you'll continue to see some of those models grow with the career scholarship account, with some other elements. But that is still, you know, definitely a minority of our programming would be in that category. A school would not really, and to the question about hiring, again, it would just depend on kind of the agreement, but in the same way that you know, a school may pay a career center for tuition for a program. If something's occurring through a training provider or through some sort of agreement with an employer, there may be some sort of agreement there where because the training provider and the employer is doing the training, that some of the CTE funding the school receives or something of that nature would be going to the entity doing the training. Okay, so a few things here more to get through. So we've thought a little bit about the why, the broader vision, the functional aspects of what does it take to earn a credential, and just kind of wanted to do here, you know, why does it matter? What I think often that can sometimes be the biggest challenge, is convincing students that you know, it's worth persisting to that next step, to earning the credential, especially if they are more focused on exiting to employment after high school graduation or something of that nature. So just kind of listed here a few of the important elements to a student of participating in CTE in general, but also having those outcomes that we've discussed throughout today's session. And I see I'm pretty behind here, so I'll just do a couple other elements here. You know, those are some of the things that matter to a student. And one of the things we wanted to do here was think about, okay, how would we actually communicate this to a student, right? So we have a student who is facing financial challenges. They don't plan to pursue college currently. They're focused on securing a stable job, achieving financial independence. What are some ways that we would communicate at some of the things we've discussed today of, hey, you've done some of this program, you're interested in this area, here's the value of earning that particular credential within their chosen area. Things could look a lot of different ways, but earning the credential could very well increase the job opportunities available to them and elevate their earnings potential, right? So like in that graphic in the welding slide of showing, hey, just doing this one more course, earning this credential, you're going to be often looking at this wage difference on average, something of that nature. Or in this example, we've got a student who is planning to attend college. They generally are focused on going to a post-secondary institution. They've taken a hard schedule, but they've decided to kind of take it easy their senior year and not do what would be necessary to cap off their credential. And so with that student, maybe it looks more like, hey, earning that credential is going to strengthen your college application to be able to say, hey, I've already earned this particular credential. It's going to make them more competitive for internships or other work-based learning opportunities that they might be looking to have some of those important early experiences to get towards their career goals, and just better prepare them in general for the career that they're interested in pursuing. Along with, probably cost savings that the farther they get in high school, the less time and money it generally takes to get where they're looking to go in post-secondary. These are, you will see these in a lot of different commission presentations, and I know someone just asked for the presentation, so these are included in here, just kind of helpful summaries that we have used for a variety of purposes here at the commission to show the value of educational attainment, both from an economic perspective and from a social perspective. So these are in here if they're of value to you. A couple last points here. So when we think about how CTE is funded by the state, we receive both the federal funding and the state funding, and that both of those sources of funding allow schools, on the federal side, both at post-secondary and secondary, and the state funding is just in the secondary space. But that is really, these are important foundational elements that allow CTE programming to occur throughout the state. The state funding is definitely not something that all states dedicate, at least to the level that Indiana does. So the state funding has definitely been central to a lot of the enrollment increases that we've seen within CTE over the last several years. The federal funding comes from the Perkins Act, and every state receives a allotment of funding, based on a variety of elements to a formula. And then wanted to think a little bit about, okay, in addition to those investments, some of the things we talked about today throughout the presentation, what are some other ways the state is supporting this work? And so one of the items here is the reimbursement of industry certifications. So there's a new line item, and we just kind of sent out payments to high schools a month or so ago, where a lot of the cost that schools are incurring for the industry certifications, which can be quite costly in some cases, can be reimbursed through this line item. So hopefully that helps, increase the amount of offerings of those certifications, and ultimately students earning those valuable certifications to continue to raise our credential attainment rate. The dual credit reimbursement has been around for a while, but for all intents and purposes, basically secondary students are able to take the majority of their dual credit offerings for free. And we do that by as long as courses are on the state's approved crosswalk. And the way that is a reality for post-secondary institutions is that post-secondary institutions are reimbursed on the back end for dual credit that is earned through their institutions. So again, that is a very generous supporting element, something that as we talk to other states is not necessarily always true, but has facilitated Indiana being a leader within dual credit generally, and particularly within CTE dual credit as well. And then the state has also recently implemented a credential completion grant and academic performance grant. So there's kind of an increased incentive for earning many of these different credentials that we've discussed here today. That is new, and you may see it get tweaked a little bit, just as it was a new item, and so kind of working through a little bit of the kinks there. But that is another supporting element to work towards the outcomes that we discussed today. The Career Scholarship Account Program, I discussed it just a little bit in thinking about some of those non-traditional delivery options, but this was new 2 years ago, and probably would likely anticipate some continued and potentially increased investment in that in the next legislative session. The idea here is, again, to just continue to expand career training opportunities for students. And this program is really focused on that employer involvement piece. So in cases where employers are really involved in partnership with a school corporation or others in offering a program, this can be a really great avenue to look at. And it requires that employer involvement, and also requires the work-based learning element as well. Couple other last things here, and then definitely would love to entertain some questions here with our remaining time. The Workforce Ready Grant has been around for several years, but that's more of that's a program focused more in the adult space, but it does help. It helps students earn a credential who may just be at a high school diploma, right? So that it helps earn a variety of different certifications, many of which would be very similar to the certifications that are, or the credentials that are available within CTE programs. So that goes back to kind of that one graphic of thinking about, whether someone is entering a pathway from an adult side or from a secondary side, there are ways to help them get to that next credential to support their career growth. And then we talked some fairly early in the presentation about the importance of career coaching and all of this, right? Helping a student, or there's the adult side too, but in this case, the career coaching grant is really focused on the student side of helping students identify their areas of interest. Hopefully, maybe at a slight, early in their education and career journey, so that they can begin working towards a post-secondary credential of some nature. So the state put $25 million into the career coaching grant during this last biennium, and there are a variety of organizations around the state which were awarded that grant earlier this year, and are doing work in partnership with schools around the state. All right, this is my last slide, and then we'll open it up for any questions. I think it's been shared in the chat where to find the presentation and the recording. And there's a variety of different links throughout the presentation, including here. So some of our other CTE specific resources are included on this page. Whether it's our, so a variety of different resources that we are really core with the field. We also have our newsletter link here. We send out a newsletter about once a month with different developments within CTE, or guidance on different topics that we're receiving questions on, things of that nature. So we would welcome anyone signing up for that newsletter if that's not something you currently receive. And then a couple things to just be looking for in 2025. more specific to CTE, we are planning to release a strategic plan that really, we have to do a Perkins State plan every 4 years. That's really focused on that federal money we receive. But as we've just discussed here, there's a lot of different investments within career technical education, within career training more broadly. So that's what we're really looking to do with the strategic plan, is think about the variety of ways the state is investing in this space and some strategies for the next several years to support those efforts and to ensure that we're maximizing the investments the state is making to get the outcomes that we're all looking for. So that will be forthcoming here in 2025. And then we're really focused on trying to make more of our data accessible. And so we're working on a data explorer that will really help districts and other local stakeholders, communities at large, review their current data within CTE and begin thinking about as a tool to help maybe make goals towards increasing credential attainment, some of the other priority outcomes that we discussed today. So that is, we've been sharing some of that with certain stakeholders right now, but we'll probably be releasing more publicly some of that data in early 2025 as well. All right. I think I've missed a couple of things in the chat, and then feel free to drop other items that you might have as well, or I believe people can come off mute, so I'm happy to take a question as well there. But all right, I see a question from Valerie about an exploratory CTE pathway option. We don't necessarily have there are a variety of courses that a student can take that are more exploratory in nature. So we have a bunch of introduction courses, say Introduction to Advanced Manufacturing. And so that would really, the goal of that course would be more of maybe an 8th or 9th grade course that a student can take to decide, hey, there's one of these advanced manufacturing pathways really of interest to me, and then they can choose to engage in that pathway during their high school experience. So we have a lot of introductory courses to the different career clusters, introduction to health sciences and other priority areas for the state. There's also a preparing for college and careers course that's now required by the state. That's just a 1-semester course that really helps students do that too. Of what's their graduation plan and what are their post-secondary plans after high school. That is technically a CTE course, but again is a graduation requirement for everyone soon, and actually will be it's included within the new diploma that will be finalized here soon. So everyone will be having to take that course here beginning soon. All right, another question about internships. Can schools create internships? Internships is just a category of work-based learning, right? So you're hearing a lot of discussion of work-based learning, and work-based learning has always been a central element of CTE programs. And I think you're seeing more and more interest in work-based learning more broadly too, for students not within a CTE program. So yes, schools throughout the state can and do create internships and other work-based learning opportunities for their students. So that might be through it looks differently in terms of who's kind of coordinating those efforts, whether it's through a career center that's really serving as the main liaison with local employers, if that's where the CTE programming is occurring, or whether it's through the school or some sort of intermediary, right? The state has, I think, really tried to get some of these different type of intermediary organizations to help play a supporting role there as well, to maybe help lessen the burden on schools and trying to set up a lot of those different work-based learning experiences. See if I've missed anything else. I think a few of my team members have been able to answer some of the questions within the chat. Any other questions from individuals with our last few minutes? There's a question about Perkins being used to reimburse certification costs. It's actually a great question, and the answer has kind of changed there a little bit with the new state reimbursement. So Perkins has rules around if a state's covering a cost, then you can't use Perkins money. So we've had to kind of communicate with our districts about some adjustments there. So with the new line item, the $2 million the state put towards reimbursing certifications, we're able to pretty much this year we were able to fully reimburse certification costs that were reported. So for anything on that grad pathways list, districts they can't use Perkins, but it gets reimbursed by the state. But there are some of those other certifications that we talked about that aren't on the grad pathways list that are more foundational in nature, OSHA 10, things of that nature. And they can use Perkins for those. So we basically tell districts, like, if you find value in some of these other certifications that are not on the grad pathways list, don't count towards your metrics and don't get reimbursed by the state. But if you still find value in your students earning those certifications, you can support those through your Perkins funding. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions. It's been put in the chat, but if you have questions for our team, you can email me direct. Or you're welcome to email me directly following up on today's presentation, or the CTE email here is monitored by several of us on our team, and we'd be happy to respond to you on any questions from some of the information that I shared here today. So that's generally the quickest way to get in contact with us for any CTE related questions. All right. Thanks, everyone.